أكبر
الله أكبر
لا إله إلا الله.
سمعت القاعدة أبعث من قلب محمد من الرياض.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله فقد أمرنا الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما ثم أما بعد. Indeed, all praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the one who prepares us for the journey into this world. And He is the one who gives us the tawfiq to live through this world. And He is the one that decides with His own will when we will depart this world. Before coming here, our masjid was struck with a very sad reality and a calamity. A 19-year-old musalli of our masjid who would never miss a fajr or an isha or for other sakes any salah in the masjid. 19-year-old, born and raised in Canada, in Milton. He happened to go to sleep 4 days ago, and in the dream, he sees that there's a lot of people that are sleeping. And he's trying to find a spot because it's a cold night. So he finds a small space and he walks up and he sees none other than Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam get up and look at him and tell him, Rafi', don't worry. Come and sleep right next to me, for you shall find warmth, insha'Allah. The child gets up with excitement and he goes and tells the dream to the imam, myself, few other people, and the father. The next morning, the father goes to wake him up and he doesn't wake up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took his soul away. 19-year-old, nothing, completely healthy, goes to university. But his story has a very important lesson for all of us. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give you and me an opportunity in this life to make an impact in our children's lives. Their tarbiyah, as well as the impact on the tarbiyah of other kids. The reason why this kid was so connected to the mosque and the center, which was still very similar to this center. They're still in the infancy stage. They're trying to figure things out, build another thing, new project, add another this and that. They're still figuring it out. But he happened to be from those and benefiting from the learning that was taking place within that masjid and that community. And that learning had such an impact that many times, many parents might drag their children to a madrasa or an education center, and Allah does not give them that tawfiq. So the lesson in his life, may Allah grant him a high status, and the bishara that Allah has given about him, the lesson for us is that our job is to provide resources and facilities and amenities so that this learning can take place. It's not your job and my job to make sure that they actually, will they follow it? Allahu A'lam. But our job is that we don't leave this earth except for the next generation we have left behind, a way for them to hold on to their religion. You see, many times you see the word tarbiyah being thrown away, just like tarbiyah, tarbiyah, tarbiyah. But if you were to ask any individual using this word tarbiyah, what does it mean? What does it entail? How many types of tarbiyah are there? See, the only tarbiyah that we're concerned about, oftentimes in our Western lifestyle, no matter how much connected we are with the masjid, the Western mindset, the only tarbiyah we're concerned about is a tarbiyah al-bahimiyya, right? Making sure that the child is healthy, making sure that he has the proper nutrients. Did you eat this? Did you eat this? Did you drink that? Did you drink that? Are you healthy? Do you have, a doctor? And then tarbiyah al-aqliyya, intellectual growth. So we send them to school, we charter a plan, we figure out how we're going to get our kid to this university or that university. If he makes it to Georgia Tech, mashallah, we get so excited about it. Top 10 universities in America. We get to brag about that. We're all focused on what? Tarbiyah al-aqliyya. It's bahimiyya, the infernal desires, the animalistic desires. That plus our aql. But that's not how the Anbiya were concerned about. Before even their children came into this earth, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says what? وَجُنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ, that Allah protect me and my son, أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ, protect them from being a mushrik. His son is not here yet. Oh Allah, my children, my progeny, protect them from what? أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ, that they may not worship what? Asnam. Tarbiyah al-aqadiyya. It's the tarbiyah of aqidah, the creed. The questions that we have, the youth that have today, are all, if not, I would say 90% of them, they boil down to the questions related to belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aqidah. Many of you are witnesses of that. Some of you have contacted me even while I was in Canada. Having spoken to at least more than 4 families have reached out to me when I've spoken to their kids. And all the questions that they're having, everything to do with tarbiyah al-aqadiyya. Now, I want you to go back and just understand this. Many of us, we are first generation. We grew up portions of our lives in another country and we came here, right? So when we grew up in that country, there were a whole bunch of tarbiyahs that were taking place as part and parcel of that society that we didn't even realize. So there was the tarbiyah of aqidah that was taking place because the entire society was built on an Islamic aqidah. So the question of why Allah was not even there. There was also tarbiyah imaniyah. There was iman that was constantly being instilled in every single one of us. Right? There was the tarbiyah of aqadiyah, imaniyah, ruhaniyah. There was the tarbiyah of our spirit, our ruh, and connection with Allah and the strength of that connection. That was part and parcel of what? The society we grew up in. I remember that I was probably 11 or 12, maybe 13. And I have a younger sister. And obviously as a boy, I had a little bit more power. So we got into an argument and I hit my sister. My neighbor, my dad's friend across, he saw that, he came and he gave me one. He's like, how dare you lay a hand on a woman? Men do not hit women. I was 12, but that society allowed any of that deviances to be corrected. So there was a built-in system that many of us came from. Our children don't have that. The next generation doesn't have that. Unless you connect them to the center over here, and we have some place, somewhere where they can grow their iman, they can grow their ruh, they can grow and learn the struggle of going in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those struggles, they're not going to learn. Because their world is what? School, come back, friends, go out, play, let's go grab some meals. Off we go. Life's good. I pray 5 times. And that is why it's so important for us to be able to understand these things. And more importantly, to be able to understand that without proper tarbiyah, right? We're so focused on tarbiyah of aql, which is also ta'lim, right? Which is this dunyawi ta'lim. We're so focused on that. I am absolutely not saying that, world education is not necessary. We should be masters of both. Many of our scholars of the past, they were polymaths, i.e. they mastered Sharia, then they mastered a science and another science. They were masters of multiple sciences, including Sharia. And within Sharia, they were masters of different sciences within Sharia. So from that perspective, I wanted to talk about this because as a teacher, as an educator within the community in the Western world, I see a massive gap. I see this gap when I see an older person walking in the masjid. I grew up in a society where I was taught, and many of you were taught, to get up and give space to the older gentleman or a woman. Today, when in the train, when I was coming in the morning, right, you're holding on to the train, then old lady comes. No man around has this tawfiq to let this older lady hold on to that bar so she doesn't fall. We grew up on that tarbiyah and we walk away and say, no, you grab, it's okay, I'm young, I can stand. That tarbiyah only takes place either through society, where everybody around the society is following a modus operandi that is in line with Islam, and then the child vis-a-vis osmosis learns all of these things. Or we need a space where they can actually learn 2 things. A community like this where they play and they learn these adab, but these adab alone are not enough. You need education. Where are they going to learn that? Where are they going to learn what is aqidah? Where are they going to learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When a child has questions, who are they going to go to? And that's why places where education is necessary. That's why places like Western world or the Western hemisphere in general, or Europe, we need places that are specialists in education, not only dunya, but deen and skill sets, life skill sets. All of these things are necessary part of our upbringing of the Muslim Ummah in this land. Now, I put forward in front of you something that might be very shocking to many of you. So, within America and Canada, when I was like 21 years old, I happened to enter in a lawyer's office. He happened to be a Jewish lawyer. And I saw a whole bunch of Hebrew that was written on his wall. And I remember asking him, I was like, why do you have all of this Hebrew written? And how do you actually speak Hebrew? Because you grew up here. And he said that I come from a particular section of Toronto where all of these, high-end Jews live. And the key that we have over there is none of our kids go to public schools until they master the Hebrew language. I'm like, so where do you master? Like, that's great. I want Arabic. Where do we go for that? How do you do that? He says it takes place in 3 places. We do not allow our kids to go to daycares. Rather, an old Jewish man or a woman, retired, goes and learns, takes a 6 months course on how to handle kids. And then in his retirement, they pass on those values in basements where there is 2 to 5 ratios. So for every 2 adults, there are 5 children. And this service is offered for free. That's number 1. Our houses are the first learning centers. Your common community, the neighborhood, you have to start establishing that. The second part, he said, after we do this, we have something which is called kivinium, which means a fresh start. It's a one-year gap program that has been designed for kids who didn't get that exposure, and now they have he went to public school, and their aqidah, according to their world, has been altered. And how do we rectify that? And there is a 124-page document that enlists an entire one-year program, and they call it a gap year. So as a Jewish father or mother, as much as it's important for them to become a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist, these high positions, they force their child after high school to take this gap year. They even call it a gap year. And the child learns for 8 months tarbiyah in their learning centers. They have around 37 of such centers across the United States. With boarding. They go there, they stay there. There's an environment that is created for them. And after 8 months, they go to an entire tour, including Palestine, and they teach them Arabic language as part of the curriculum. So they can relate to the narrative and reshape the narrative that needs to be reshaped. See, without learning centers, nobody is making headway in their religion in this country. And that is an essential part that we need to understand. That masajids will only be filled with musallis if you have learning centers that are preparing those people to come in these masjids. Otherwise, our end is going to be like those churches that are so gigantic. The recent Muslim organization bought this gigantic, 30-acre, 35-acre giant church in Detroit, Miftah Institute. 7 auditoriums. At their peak, they used 20,000 people that used to worship in that church. Nobody's there. Because it's not about just service. It's not about just coming and praying. It's about educating the next generation. It's about educating the current generation parents for them to realize the importance of basic Islamic education, which starts with aqidah and how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these 3 basics, these 2 basics. And obviously the connection with Allah. So I could not emphasize the importance. And when I was approached, I had to cancel some of my things. And I said, this project and initiative is definitely, there are others that like that. I mean, if you want, you should definitely go and look into something called IOK in Los Angeles. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. Institute of Knowledge. Started just like this. Small masjid, but then eventually turned into an institute. In that institute, at any given time, you have 800 to 900 people on a weekday learning Islam. And in its inclusive center, which means, and that's the motto here, that's the biggest attraction for me from when they spoke to me, that everyone's included. It doesn't matter what you believe in. As long as you say, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, you're welcomed in this masjid. And that's the same motto we have in our masjid. And the education caters to the needs of the entire community. Somebody can attend a course on this and somebody can attend a course on that, and they're all welcome because that's the mainstream Sunni Islam, and we agree to all of that. So when they told me about this learning center, I called them and I said, I'll try to make arrangements because this for me is the most important thing that a community can embark on. We may not see the results of this in our lifetime. I repeat, you may not see the benefit, but 50 years down the road, when people come back and look, the vision that was set by the community over here to be able to understand that more than a basketball court, we need a learning center. I haven't even seen the plans, by the way. I was just so excited about the idea. I was like, yeah, I'm coming. And I'll wait for that tonight. So from the religious perspective, I just wanted to make it clear for everyone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he gave permission to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to go to Masjid Quba, and when Prophet went to Masjid al-Nabawi, there's a course that I'm going to be teaching in December. It's called the Prophetic Day. And in that course, we elaborate that the first 3 to 4 years of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life, Masjid al-Nabawi was the learning center. Before it was a masjid. They would pray in that. They would wrestle in that. They would eat. They would congregate. They would have special meetings. But above all of that, the primary focus was tarbiyah. And all of the hadith that you see where Rasulullah is saying, what about people like that? What about people like that? What's wrong with people when they do this? Where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sitting and he is taking a straw and drawing fakhatta khatta, and he draws different lines. He's using the land as the blackboard, whiteboard today, but he didn't have that. He used the earth and he says, this is insan. He drew a box and he said, this is insan, وَهَذَا أَمَلُهُ, and this is his desires. And as he's going through his journey, he is confined in a box. His life cuts him off from his desires. That image that Rasulullah drew, all of that, those hadiths took place in the first 3 to 4 years, where Masjid al-Nabawi was the prime source of inspiration. Where Umar radiallahu anh, he had business and he had his neighbor, and they would take what? Turns. They would be like, no, one day it's your turn to go. Come back to me in Maghrib and tell me what I missed. Next day, Umar radiallahu anh would go and his neighbor would take care of his affairs. Learning was so important for them at that time. Then you go back in history and you see that Muslims were the first to build institutions. The first university in the world, the oldest university in the world, the first medical school in the world, the first mental health hospital in the world, all of them were built by Muslims. They were all built by Muslims. If you look up the lecture that I gave on disabilities, you know, Muslims and children and people dealing with disabilities, in that we enumerated amount of hospitals. Like we had these places where people could go, nobody knew what was happening with them. And they were wellness centers for people that were suffering from depression, long before depression became a cool thing to talk about. Everyone, every now and then, it's like a mental health workshop, right? Long before that, Muslims were the first ones. But it all started from learning and learning centers. And I leave you with this. I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I want you to, as an exercise, go and pick up the Quran and read the first 5 verses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to us. And find out how many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first introduction that He does to mankind with His kalam, His Quran, how many times has He mentioned ilm in it? How many times has He mentioned reading in it? And qalam. You'll find that the entire concept over there is what? Knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. Read, read, and qalam. And in that sequence, you have to seek knowledge. And that is why you find that the Salafus Salih in the past, if they knew that there was a hadith, they knew that there was a hadith with the person, right? They would travel far and wide to get to that person. I mean, there's a hadith of, there's a Sahabi who found out that there's a hadith that أَنِّي مَا سَمِعْتُ. There's a hadith that somebody is narrating about Prophet ﷺ. I have not heard this hadith. So he traveled a journey of good 25, 30 days. When he arrived over there, he saw that this person was involved in actions that are not befitting of a person who narrates hadith. So he came back. And he said, Subhanallah, you didn't ask him? He said, كَيْفَ أَثِقُهُ فِي كَلَامِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. How can I actually trust him with the kalam of Allah when he is deceiving his customers? You had Imam Malik radiallahu anhu. You notice the ihtiram he had for ilm and hadith. That a person came to him, a qadi came to him, and he said, Ya Malik, O Malik, can you teach me some ahadith? Imam Malik turned to him and he said, Subhanallah, you don't even know the adab of seeking knowledge? Man hada yas'alni an hadithin wa ana qa'im. Why is he asking me about hadith of Rasulullah and I'm standing? That's against the adab of talking about the hadith of Rasulullah while you're walking and standing. Then he ordered and he said, bring whip and let's whip this guy so he learns adab. So he says, Ya Malik, ana qadi'ul balad. I am the judge. He said, Anta awla, we should actually begin with you. You should be the first one whipped. If that's the qadi that does not know the adab, then what about the rest? So learning centers are not places that are just primarily for dunya knowledge. People learn skills over there, world knowledge, aqidah, sharia, but more importantly, adab. 50% of what children will learn in a masjid is adab. If you ever go to a Quran school and the Quran school does not have adab as part of their curriculum, take your kids out of that school. Because they're not learning, because it's not just a book, it's the kalam of Allah. And if the teacher over there, while he's listening to the Quran, is on the phone, that's not the Quran school you want to send your kids to. Because the person, muallim, the person who is teaching, he does not have the veneration of the kalam of Allah. How are the kids going to venerate? So these are the adab that are necessary. Inshallah, tonight we will all be gathered for this. I will talk a little bit more about it, inshallah, in other aspects of it. But I do hope that all of you do come out and share the excitement that I bring to the table. And literally, I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to come here because I'm like, I can't miss this. This is like, in my eyes, this is the biggest step for this community and in the South, like, because there are no big learning centers in this region, like all the 7 states that you guys have. And for my vision, what I see is if we're able to create this as a place where people from all these 5 or 6 states across flocking here to learn, we have a 1-year program, 2-year programs. I mean, we need to start thinking and get excited about it. It's not your job to figure out how, because if you got the right vision, as one of my teachers, he said, you know, when you want to get to 10, but you can only see till 3, walk to 3 and hope. And believe in Allah that Allah will show you after when you reach 3, 4, 5, and 6. And in the process of you going through 4, 5, and 6, you may not survive, but Allah will bring people who will take your vision from 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 because of the sincere intention you held when you took the step of number 1. So we ask Allah that everybody that is involved in this, that Allah grants us true sincere intentions for this project, and our eyes are not on the eyes of anybody's wealth, but on the wealth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah's will is there, this project will come in reality before you and I would even leave this earth. And if Allah's will is there and His help is there, and that is directly related to our sincerity, then we will even see the fruits of this, inshallah, in our lifetime. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه فإنه الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala man la nabiyya ba'da. In the end, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants us the ability to truly love the message of Quran. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes Quran the light of our hearts. And He makes Quran the nur through which we make our decisions in our lives. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that through the light of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eliminates all ailments in our hearts and grants us the tawfiq of doing true ijtihad and da'wah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He connects us to the love of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And He makes us from those people who are gathered on the throne of Allah, underneath the shade of the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from those who are connected to the masajid. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect the youth of this ummah and the youth of this masjid and their imans and the imans of the generations to come ila yawm al-qiyamah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He unites our hearts and makes us one ummah. And we become the source of inspiration for the rest of the nations through the unity and love and mahabbah that we display for one another. When we see our brothers in the masjid, knowing that we may have disagreements with them, we smile at them for the sake of Allah. And we become from those who cleanse our hearts from any ailments towards anybody. And we forgive every single person who has harmed us knowingly or unknowingly, so that we can be from those whom Allah says, Wallahu yuhibbul muhsineen. And Allah loves the ones who do ihsan, i.e. go beyond what Allah has called us to do. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this blessed day of Friday that we send salutations on Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He places barakah in this community and our night tonight, inshallah, together. And in the end, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all of us from any fitan ما ظهر منها وما بطن. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي.